And the world sits there and tells you, by the way, that when you look at that kind of diversity, the world tells you that it doesn't work. So that played, incredible player, African born, stood in front of his teammates and shared about the age he was when both of his parents were killed. When I look back on the career, it won't be on a goal that I scored, it won't be on a game that we won. Even if it's a championship game, it's going to be those personal interactions.
Alrighty, thank you, Hamid and Mike Avery, for attending our first episode, Proceeds Football. We are here with Mike Avery. He was a Division I soccer coach for Valparaiso University. He was also a professional player in Sweden. Played center back. I believe.
I was an attacker. There's a lot of coaches that'll laugh about me playing as a center back right now.
Oh, whoops! So, that's my mistake.
Okay, so you were forward.
Yeah, I either played in the midfield or up front, but mostly out on the wing. Yeah.
Excellent. Not only that, Mr. Avery right now is a head coach at Fort Wayne FC, which is a semi-professional team, and he's also not only the head coach, but he is a sporting director as well. He obviously has a love for football, and obviously has dedicated a lot of time not only to establishing his career, but the career of younger athletes, and that is what we are also about. So we share that passion as well, Mike. Thank you so much for dedicating your expertise to young athletes. And he also was smart enough to put Hamid on the Valparaiso team as well. I guess he followed his gut feeling on that. But anyways, with further ado, we're going to go into our first episode, guys. Just a quick introduction about Proceeds Football. We are a soccer equipment company, and basically 4 things that separate us. 4 core competencies that we focus on is that we make great products. We are a boutique brand, so as opposed to Nike and Adidas, Under Armour, Puma, we're obviously a lot smaller, but we focus on just the football, soccer crowd. We don't want to make products for basketball players or swimmers or American footballers. We just want to cater a boutique brand to the soccer, to the authentic soccer audience. The third thing that sets us apart is that we work with local associations to subsidize tournaments and to help them out with either tournament fees or to help their team members, to help their young athletes with any equipment that they might need. We are going to be having a tournament here this spring with our first league, and that should be in the end of April. So if you guys are, if you guys have, I think it's a 7v7 tournament, like $1,000 cash prize to the winner. And we're looking to have host 20 teams for this. It's we're going to be putting something on our Instagram page. Our Instagram handle is ProSeedsFutbol, ProSeedsFutbol on Instagram. And with that, Hamid, why don't you introduce yourself, my friend? And Hamid is my manager, one of my managers here at Proceeds Football. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. Pleasure to have Mike Avery here on the podcast. Yes, like you said, he brought me into Valparaiso University when I was 17 years old. Since then, I've had, quite a wide array of football experiences. I've played in Brazil, I've played in Croatia, I've played in Latvia a couple of times, in a few other, in 3rd and 2nd division clubs there. I've also gone to so many countries in Europe on trials. I've seen a lot for a 25-year-old in this football space and football industry, and I really identified with the Proceeds Football, with the identity and with the message and the goal that Proceeds Football has, which is to also give back to the community. And that's something that not only resonates with me as a person, But it resonates with me as a footballer, especially considering the fact that I at Valpo, I was actually, really taught those core values, as Mike Avery, will be speaking with us soon. We always went out into the community to, talk to kids, to give back, to run camps, to do a whole lot of things, to show the community the power and the beauty of football and what it really means to somebody. So yeah, Mike Avery, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you guys for allowing me some time on your show. Hamid, it's great to see you, and it's great to meet you. And I guess I'll start here. So, like most people, probably not unusual, but I was maybe 4 years old in San Mateo, California, when my parents put me on my first soccer team. It was a neighborhood team. It was kids that all lived on a couple of block radius from where I lived. The dads who knew nothing about the game got together to coach the team. They had a really cool opportunity. I always go back and think about this. There was two major roads that went through San Mateo. One of them was the El Camino Real, which is the famous highway that connects all the missions on California's coast. And the other one was called the Alameda de las Pulgas. And so my first team could have been Real. It could have been Real San Mateo,
That's so
Real
funny.
California, in the honor of all the great Real teams. But my parents and all the coaches, they went with the other street. So my very first team was called Las Pulgas, so the fleas, which is
Oh my gosh.
maybe the perfect name for a 4 and 5-year-old co-ed soccer team.
Right.
But that was my first team. So I don't know why at 4 years old I fell in love with the game, but I did. I really don't know why the game decided to love me back, but thankfully it did. And so now you go on this journey like you guys have been on as well. I'm 55 years old now. So what it means is that every single day of my life for the last 51 years, I've been on a soccer team every single day of my life. And so
Wow.
it's an incredible space of time, and I'm still chasing it and still following it. And, I was a young player. I was a club player. I was a high school player. I was a college player. I was a professional player. And then I went right into, there was some overlap actually when I was playing and coaching, and got right into coaching and spent almost 30 years, like 27, 28 years as a college coach. Started off, I actually had a reverse career in some ways because I started off as a head coach before I was an assistant coach, really. And so I worked at some small college programs and kind of worked your way up, and I ended up being an assistant coach at the University of Notre Dame for about 7 years. So that was an incredible experience.
How was that experience?
Oh, it was amazing. Notre Dame is like Disneyland for athletics, and so it's every resource, such an incredible school. And when you grow up on the West Coast, when you think about colleges, you dream of places like Notre Dame from how it looks and how it feels. So it was a really cool. And then from a football standpoint, I worked with a coach named Bobby Clark, who was a legend, probably the best that's ever done it. He's a Scottish international, played in 4 World Cups, actually played for Alex Ferguson at Aberdeen.
Wow.
And, he was at Stanford and Dartmouth and won national championship at Notre Dame, and just a really incredible coach. And then I had a chance to go from Notre Dame to Louisville. So I went from working with Bobby Clark, who was like an older, established, legendary coach, to go work for a guy named Ken Lola at Louisville, who was like an up-and-coming, younger version. And so to get two very different experiences, because they were very different in how they approached the game, it was just a great opportunity for me to learn and from guys like that. So another incredible athletic department at Louisville, one of the biggest places in the country that you can work athletically. And then I had a chance to go to Valparaiso, which is a little bit of a different move, honestly, because it was such a smaller program. On the path that I was on career-wise, if I had been patient, I would have been the next big college head coach, because that's the path that I was on. Notre Dame, Louisville, wait your turn. You might end up, you name the school.
Right.
But we had a great situation in Valpo because my wife was and still is the head volleyball coach at Valparaiso.
Oh, wow.
And so really incredible opportunity to come and work.
Did you guys meet on the soccer field?
We met coaching. She was the volleyball coach at Bethel College in Mishawaka, Indiana, and I was the head soccer coach there. And so
that's
we
the
moved
school
cool.
right next to Notre Dame, right?
right near Notre Dame. That's right. Yeah, that was my first head coaching job. I was maybe 24, 25 years old. And she was the
Wow.
assistant volleyball coach. I like to say that she stalked me and followed me around for a while, but for me seeing her, that's an actual absolute joke because it was the other way around. She's incredible. And so we had a chance to finally, in our marriage, not only work and coach, but at the same school. You know what I mean? And so it was a really cool family opportunity for us, and a chance to take over a Division I program as a head coach that needed a lot of love. You know, the team wasn't very good historically, and we had a chance to try and turn it around. And so I was at Valpo for 13 years.
Wow.
2019, I guess, I got called into a meeting, and about 5 minutes later, I wasn't the head coach at Valpo anymore because they decided they needed to drop a couple of athletic programs because of some budget constraints. And so men's tennis, men's soccer chopped off. And so that was a hard time because that was maybe the first time in my life in all those years that I was like, okay, I'm not coaching at the moment. What am I doing right now? It was an interesting time for me. And fortunately, I got offered the job in Fort Wayne literally on the same day that they dropped the program at Valpo. I got a call that afternoon. I didn't take the job that day, but that call came that quickly. And so I had some opportunities to stay in college coaching, and we considered them, but we would have had to have moved. And so the family wasn't ready to move. My son was in high school. My other one was in junior high school. My wife coached still at a place that she had to be growing. So this thing in Fort Wayne has been really, really fun. I don't know if you want me to get into that now, but
Yeah. I mean, we have a structure, but
yeah,
you're what I want to elaborate on is because you were at Notre Dame, assistant head coach at Notre Dame, and you were at Louisville. Were you an assistant coach at Louisville as well?
correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. What were some those are some big schools, and they have obviously a very large budget. What were some takeaways that from your experiences at those two schools?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned I was a head coach before I was an assistant coach, and so
Oh, okay.
it was
Wow.
really the first time for me to go in and learn all of the things that I didn't know. You know what I mean? I was very young. I was just done playing when I took the head coaching job at Bethel College. I was probably still the best player in the team at that time, even though I wasn't on the team. And so the coaching part of it became me kind of showing them and just figuring stuff out on your own. And then when I had a chance down the road, because I went from Bethel out to California, I was at Cal State San Bernardino for a while, Division II school out there as the head coach, and then came back to Notre Dame just to really see a coach like Bobby Clark, and then Brian Weiss, who's the head coach at Georgetown now, was the other assistant at the time, and a chance to dig in and learn from these guys who were just doing the job so well. And what I learned from Coach Clark is that he's such a patient teacher, just an incredible teacher. He wasn't, as a younger head coach, when things aren't going well in the field, what you do is you just throw your hands in the air and blame the players on the field for not doing what you want them to do.
Right.
And what I would learn from Coach Clark is we'd go back in the office. If things weren't going well, he would just say inevitably, we have to figure out a better way to teach it. We have to come up with a different way. We're not getting our message across. It wasn't a blame situation. It was a curiosity situation. And that comes from just a lot of experience. And so that was really an amazing opportunity. And then Ken Lola was different. Ken was about the best man manager I'd ever been around. His ability to relate to players and have difficult conversations with people, but still be professional and still show them that he loved them and cared about them, but not, you still have to make the hard choices sometimes. That's coaching. That was a really good experience as well.
Real
And
quick, Mike.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, all the opportunities at both of those places to kind of rub shoulders with some of the very best coaches in other sports. So the men's basketball coach or the women's basketball coach or the head football coach, you grab a coffee and sit down and talk to them about coaching. There's so much incredible takeaway that comes from being in a community like that.
What were some of a quick tangent? What were some of your toughest and what were some of your best moments? You mentioned some of those talks that you might have to cut someone off the team because they were right there, but elaborate a little bit on some of those memorable moments and then again some of the most positive moments throughout your coaching career.
Yeah, I think you certainly get better at having harder conversations. I think in
Mhm.
some ways, especially the job of the head coach, I think a lot of what you do is deliver bad news. I mean, that's kind of what the job is. I mean, you have Hamid played for me at Valpo, and we had not only a varsity team, but we had a reserve team at the same time. So we had close to
No,
about,
that was before I
is that
think
right
I
before
got
you
there.
got there?
That was
Yeah. We
before.
still had a
Yeah,
really large roster, though. We were probably about
we
30
did.
guys.
We did have a very large roster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you have a roster of 30, which is pretty common in college soccer to carry a roster that large, um, every time you walk out onto the field, there's 19 of those guys upset with you when they're not in the first 11 for a game, right?
Yeah, that's so true. I
And then
remember
if you
those
happen to be
days.
traveling and you're only taking a portion of that team, you have to have those conversations and leave somebody behind. And that's football. I mean, look, in my job in Fort Wayne, we've got a roster of about 26. I have to announce, 2 days beforehand who's in the squad for the week. I'm going to pick 18 out of these 24. So you're already cutting two guys out of it. And then the day before the game, you have to say to about 8 of them, okay, you're not dressing for the game. You can't even be on the bench. You got to go sit up in the crowd for the game. And so these kinds of conversations are never easy because you know how hard everybody works. They all love it. They all work hard, and you care about them as a person. But you still have to deliver the information. And I think
Have you
I just think
have
you
you
get better at that, obviously, as you get more experience with it.
have you seen that type of news be a good motivator to some of your some of your players?
Sure. And I've seen it
Okay.
go all ways. I mean, I've seen some people take that information as fuel and then just go back out and prove to you that it's wrong. I've seen others take that information as this guy's nuts. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'm going to take my ball and go somewhere else. You see all of it, and the one thing that is helpful, I think, in the modern game today is that we watch so much football on TV and you
Mhm.
see, you watch United or Arsenal or Liverpool, whoever you like, and you'll see international all-stars not dressed for the game on the Wednesday because they were in the squad on the Saturday. Squad rotation has become very normal. And so you can always kind of point to that. But at the end of the day, the message is constantly, look, you've got to earn your way into the squad. I pick the squad, but I don't pick the squad. The team picks the squad based on their performance, right? And so that kind of idea is something that you're constantly, especially with younger players, just trying to say, look, you have two choices now. You can take this information and get frustrated by it, or you can take it as motivation and figure out how to get into our view for the next one.
Yeah, for sure. I remember personally when I was at Valparaiso for those 2 years, they were really formative years for me, for example, because that was something that I wasn't used to. That was something that was rather new to me, especially considering the fact that I went from a relatively comfortable club level to all of a sudden being in this extremely professional environment where it's in one way it's like dog eat dog, but in another way it's like everybody's pushing you to be better, everybody's incentivizing you to be better. And so it was a huge learning curve for me personally. I don't know if you remember, coach, but I was 17 years old when I
Yeah.
came in, and I was I was by far the youngest player on the team. And I just remember the first day, I believe, like the first day of official preseason, Isaiah Madrid just bodies me into the floor because I took too long on the ball. And he went to me. He was kind of like, "You have a lot to learn." And I was like, "Oh my God, okay. I need to really get my act together." So I just remember those little moments, like how you said, or like the first time I made a travel roster, the first time, I got dressed for a game, and like seeing like, okay, I need to chase that feeling, chase that feeling, chase that feeling. And so it's tough. But also as a player perspective, like it's tough because it depends on the mental situation you're in. Sometimes mentally it's like, okay, I don't know how long I'm gonna keep fighting for this. But it's so, if you want to make it to the next level, for example, you have to just get past that. At the end of the day, all players on the roster are going through the same thing, whether in different forms. So like that was something that I really had to learn, and that you guys really implemented it well throughout our time there. So
Yeah, that kind of maturity is only earned through experiences, really. I mean,
100%.
that's just the way
I
it
can't
works.
live without that. So.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the higher the levels that you climb, it becomes even more cutthroat and more, somebody's going to call you in with a smile on their face and shake a hand and say, "We're going to let you go today. Thanks very much." And then
Yeah.
he's going to help you find your way to the airport, right? There's not a lot of hugs and kisses along the way sometimes, and you're trying again in a college situation is slightly different because you're still with that player for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever the scenario is. And I think it's really important. And again, this is probably where I've grown the most as a coach is letting them know that you still care about them and value them as a person. This is just a football conversation, right? It's not personal. It is just football. And that is something that I've certainly got a lot better. Look, if your left foot's not good enough, it's not good enough. If you're not fit enough, you're not fit enough. Whatever the situation is for a given player, I can tell them that without feeling too bad about telling them that because it's information that they need. And that's another form of love, is showing them that you're giving them the information that you need.
Yeah, for sure.
Coach Avery, can we call him Coach Avery?
Yeah, Mike works. Coach Avery works, whatever you want.
Okay, Coach Avery, what would you say, because there's a lot of athletes, obviously footballers who are going to be watching this, what would you say distinguishes from your just career as a coach, those players who get cut and the players who are on the roster? I've played myself, but I didn't really get too far, honestly. I didn't play at college or anything. I just played, varsity, high school, and that was it. I went to business school. But what would you say, Coach Avery, that are some things that distinguish those players? Is it the teamwork? Is it the team chemistry, I should say? Or is the team chemistry supersede individual talent? Or what,
I
question
think
for you. Yeah.
it's all of the above. It's kind of a both and. It's every situation is different. I think that how you fit into the group is really important. And so, if you turn it into it's all about you, then that's going to be a really hard thing in a team dynamic. Individual talent's really important. So good players are good players, and maybe they get a little bit of a pass in some ways that other players don't. That's the world that we live in. And so, but the best players, the greatest players, are the ones who are also talented, but also understand the team dynamic. And so, I think their ceiling is much higher than just a talented player. And so, I do think that I tell kids all the time. I talk to players almost every day. Look, the difference between making it and not making it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple, really. Hamid, he's living this stuff, so he'll know this. All you got to do is be good on the right day in front of the right person. That's it, right? So that's the simple version. Now, the trick is you never know what the right day is, and you never know who the right person is, right? And so the hack to it is you just got to be good every day. And so developing habits that allow you to perform at the highest level every day is really what the goal is. Whether you're Hamid could be on a field by himself over in the corner training, and somebody might drive by and see him out the window, right? So you never know where the right environment is, where the right day is. And so you've got to develop a system, your own process where I'm just going to be good and grind every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. And then you'll put yourself in the best spot. The secret to all of it, too, is that coaches want you to be good. They pit us against them. It's like, I want to find a player who's great. I want you to succeed, and so, all of this stuff, it's a big mental game where you've just got to try and keep yourself right and keep yourself going through good times and through bad times, because all of them you're going to pass through all of those times, and just trying to keep yourself going is really the greatest lesson. It's like, can I just as a habit grind today, whatever situation is. All you do is control. It sounds like a cliche, I know, but you just control those things that you can control, because at the end of the day, you don't decide whether you play or not. I do. right? And so all you can do is put yourself in the best light, and then when the decision's made, then you just figure out how you're going to deal with it and get back on the field and show them the next day. Make yourself undroppable, really.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
excellent. I mean, it's funny because we talk about these conversations, you know, we talk about these moments, for example, that we would have in a college or in a professional environment when it comes to team cohesion, when it comes to, you know, grinding every single day. And for me personally, I think of a team, for example, I know you're a Manchester United fan,
Yeah,
coach, I'm sorry, but I think
all
of a
right.
team like Liverpool.
Yeah,
I think of a team like Liverpool, for example, especially, you know, with Jurgen Klopp, how he manages that squad to be at their absolute highest every single training session, every single game, and how they just don't drop that energy. I mean, last year, obviously, they had a little bit of a drop in form, but this year they're right back at it, you know, in
yeah.
the title race. And I wanted to, you know, we wanted to ask you, you know, what do you think influences team cohesion like that? What do you think influences in a situation like, for example, Liverpool's? What role does a coach have in terms of keeping the squad, whether it's the starting 11 or whether it's the you know, the guys not even dressing? How do you keep everybody on that same high standard all of the time, no dropping whatsoever?
Yeah,
And I'd like to add on to that, Coach Avery. How do you see um, making your best judgment of putting that squad together as well, like putting that 11 together?
yeah, yeah. I think the role of the coach in all this is critical, but in it may be a different way than you think it is, I guess, because I think the modern day manager, the people who are doing it the very best, like Jurgen Klopp, it's a tricky time. It's different than it used to be, even when I was playing, or even 10 years ago, where you had more of a dominating figure that was in charge of the, you know, like an old school coach that was my
Like an
way or the
Alex
highway.
Ferguson, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that works so much anymore. I think people
Hmm.
are changing. I think the game is changing. And across sports too. You watch, you know, somebody like Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors, incredible leader. He and Klopp have a lot in common that way because they have a very firm control over their team, but at the same time, it's not them just standing there saying, "Do this, do this, do this." They have a lot of. They're taking a lot of collaboration with the people that are around them. I think that's what Klopp's brilliant at. You know, I had a chance to watch him up close and personal a couple summers ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. The team was over in the U.S. and they trained at Notre Dame, and so I watched him train for a few days. Uh, he's very German. He's very in control. He's got, you know, it looks like they're flying and freewheeling, and they're not. They're very disciplined in how they play. But at the same time, his interactions with the people around him are very open. He's very transparent, very loving, stands up for them, and you know they want to respond to him because they see that he really does care about them. He cares about their issues, and you know there's a great quote. It was the I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but there's the woman who was in charge of the London School of Economics, and she says that success in business used to be about muscle, how strong you were, and we live in an
Mhm.
era right now where success is about the brain, but we're moving into an era where success is about the heart, and it's about
Mhm.
emotional intelligence and how you feel. And I think that that is that's coaching right now. It's like it's about guiding, and as much it is about controlling. It's about just guiding, and letting the people shine that are around you. Put them in an environment where you are in charge, but at the same time you're open to conversation and persuadable. It's a really tricky balance, man. It's a really, really tricky
Do you know
balance.
if it's Nimet Shefik?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think it's true. I think it applies. Is that we're heading into a generation now where it's not about warm fuzzy feelings, soft things, but it's about, you know, accepting everybody for who they are and creating a culture in your team where everybody feels like they belong a little bit. You know, I think when you're team building, I think the analogy that we often use is it's putting a puzzle together. You'll hear people say that. If I just get one more piece to the puzzle, then we're going to be right, right? The problem with that
Mhm.
analogy is this, is that a puzzle is a perfectly created picture already that has a perfectly cut out piece that fits perfectly into the spot, right? That's not people. That's not people. So I think a better analogy is like making a mosaic. So you take broken pieces, different shapes, different colors, sharp edges, and you've got to make a beautiful picture out of all of these broken pieces, right? That's a better analogy because that's real, because people are, they're not perfectly cut out for things. And so if I can go into it with that mindset, it's like, oh, what does Hamid Babali bring to the team, right? I might say, well, I want a 9 that does this, and then ignore this other quality that he brings to the team. So can I let his play influence what the picture in my head is? I think it's more of an art project than it is like a science project,
And that's, I mean, football is called
Yeah.
a beautiful game. It is, across all platforms. It's called an
Yeah.
art form at the end of the day, because
For sure.
the
And
picture's constantly moving.
there are coaches, you watch what Pep has done. He's revolutionized the game, right? But even in that, there's structure to it 100%, but there's also freedom in there to let guys express themselves in ways that other people haven't before. I guarantee the players are informing that team's progress in way just as much as he is. He's not he might be sitting there with a board and just saying, "Oh, I'm going to move this here and tuck this full back in and put the right," or it might just happen, right? And then they start to go with what's happening in front of them. It's interesting to think about how it works. But I think again, it's a much bigger job than some people would anticipate. I think because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with all of the pressures that they're under, contracts and family situations, and it even trickles down. Look, we're working now in the USL2, the highest amateur level in the country. We move up to League One in another couple of years, so we're building a pro club. But even at our level, we're not paying the players. We pay them per diem. We give them housing. It's a great setup. But little things like, oh, can I get tickets for my girlfriend that's coming to the game? All these little things that are like a detail, right? You've got to pay attention to all that stuff because it starts to influence product on the field if you're not aware of all of it. So it's a lot of there's a lot of fires going on around you. You've got to try and not put them out, but also just keep everything under control to keep the thing going. So coaching's an interesting job for sure.
For sure. I mean,
what would you say?
Oh.
Go ahead, Hamid.
I was gonna say, I mean, speaking of interesting jobs, I mean, just in my experience, at Valpo, especially as a college environment, there were quite a lot of interesting things that happened, a lot of interesting stories that I never would have really anticipated coming in. And I just wanted to ask if you wanted to share like any crazy, wacky stories that you've had, whether
or sacrifices, breaking points. We want to really give those athletes who are watching this like a sense of motivation and humility that of what they're going through as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because you'll as an athlete, I mean, remember a story like it was yesterday. Then I'll be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. You know what I mean? Like it didn't hit me in the same way that maybe it hit you, because when you're coaching, especially when you've been doing it for a long time, what you learn is never to be surprised by anything. Because you're dealing with people, and the people that I was dealing with were like 17 to 21, 22-year-old guys. I don't know if you guys are aware, but that's not usually the smartest group of people to spend your time around. Their collective IQ goes down when they get together, not goes up. And so there was always craziness that goes on, right? But I think it's kind of the beautiful part of it in a way, because imagine this. So in that team that Hamid was on, we would have maybe 30 players on the roster. I think there was one year we had 22 different birth countries out of 30.
That was my freshman year.
Yeah. I mean, think about that kind of diversity. You have 22 different birth countries in a room of 30 people, 10 different languages spoken native to that 22, right?
Wow.
You have guys from 3-car garage, gated suburb communities, guys that come from an orphanage in a village who don't know who their parents were. You've got a guy from a farm. You got a guy from the inner city. You've got every kind of life experience, every religious background, every cultural norm, financial situation, right? All of it thrown together. And the world sits there and tells you, by the way, that when you look at that kind of diversity, the world tells you that it doesn't work. That kind of diversity doesn't work. What I think, what I believe, what our players believed, is that not only does it work, but it was by far our greatest strength. But what we have to do is figure out how to tap into it, how to learn to celebrate the differences. And so that was kind of an ongoing struggle, is because it's never easy. You know what I mean? It's like you can't just throw these guys in the room and say, okay, everybody just get along, right? You know, there's
And what were some of the experiences that you implemented to create that team chemistry?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with open dialogue, creating opportunities to share. I've gotten a lot better at it now, even since I've coached me, because I learned a lot during that time, like everybody else did. I'm much more intentional now about it. So I'll give you an example. In my team now, every single day of training, we start practice with what I call the hot seat, and one of the players goes in the hot seat, and I basically just ask them 5 questions about themselves, like who's a hero in your life, what's a hardship
I
that
love
you've
that.
been through, what's a highlight, what's a headache, just something that's on your mind now, and what's a hope, something you're excited about, right? And it's interesting because guys then come from all of these different backgrounds, different journey, however they got there, they're here now. And when you hear about their stories a little bit, and if you can start to listen to those stories, not with judgment, but like actually like, wow, that's amazing.
Relation, I
Yeah,
can relate to that experience. Yeah.
100%. You start to see yourself a little bit in it, even if the details have changed. You start to understand them a little bit better. For example, I'll give you an example. We had a kid on a couple summers ago that played, incredible player, African born. Stood in front of his teammates and shared about the age he was when both of his parents were killed, and about how he moved into a coach. A coach kind of took control of him at like 10 years old. And his whole life has been, since 10 years old, chasing professional football because he owes it to the village and the people that were back there to pay them back, right?
Wow.
It's a lot to
That's
carry,
crazy. That's
right?
awesome.
Right? So you listen to him tell that, and then you start to understand, okay, wait a second. So when he's on the field and maybe he's a little bit grumpy sometimes, or he's a little bit hard on me when I miss a pass for him, or you know what I mean? Like the things that you would sit around in the locker room with your buddy and say, can you believe that guy? The way he just talked to us on the field. Instead, you change that, can you believe it, to like, wow, can you believe what he went through? Right? It doesn't forgive him anything. You still got to work with him on how he communicates on the field, but you maybe understand him a little bit better. Right?
Right.
And so I think creating that environment is just about those kind of open conversations. And it just comes from intention of us actually really saying, what's most important to me isn't winning. What's most important to me is who we become along the way. That's what's most important to me. I think if we chase the transformation that's available in the game, I think all of the other shiny stuff that we love comes too. The
Comes
winning
to us all.
comes, the contracts come, the success comes. I think all that stuff comes. But I think
Yeah.
what we really need to keep our eye on, the prize, the real prize, is lifelong friends, who we become, what I learned, that connection. That's ultimately what it's about, you know?
Mhm.
So I,
And it
I, I
builds
think
team chemistry.
I use my job now as like an experiment. Can we have the most successful team in the country? I love football. I study it. I watch it. I teach it. I love it. So I want to give them the highest level football education possible. Like I give them all that. But can we also have the greatest culture possible? Right. So
And you would say,
that's the experiment that I'm trying to chase. Like, can we do both?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, based on what I experienced at Valpo, especially my first year, my freshman year, I remember I enjoyed football like no other year in my life because I just remember like looking around, whether it was the seniors or the freshman group, and I just remember like every single one of those people was vastly different, but we all chased the same goal. But not only did we chase the same goal, but we were all collectively there for each other, whether it was through a high moment, a low moment. I remember when we were we were trying to qualify for playoffs, and we had just drawn 0-0. And I was on the bench that game, and I remember we started walking off sad because we didn't get the result we needed. We needed to win. But then 2 other schools, I believe it might have been like Wright State or something, they drew 0-0 as well. And so that got us into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I just remember like hugging the seniors as if we had been friends for like 10 years because of this crazy moment and all this work that we had all collectively put together. And I mean, I just remember those moments are those moments are the pinnacle of creating that culture, not just of winning, but of embracing each other for who we are.
Yeah. Last summer, at the end of the summer, I went up into Maine with about 12 of my college soccer teammates. So we had like a mini reunion. In fact, our coach came with us too.
Wow.
So I graduated college like 35 years ago, by the way. So these are guys who have been in my life for like 30 to 35 years, right? Some of them I talk to all the time. Some of them I haven't seen in many years, right? Yeah, it is incredible the weekend that we had. We drank a little too much. We ate a little bit too much. We told a lot of stories, right? But you'd be amazed at how few times we talked about soccer, right? We definitely didn't talk about games. You know, we definitely didn't talk about who started the game and who came off the bench or who scored this goal or that goal, right? But we talked about all the relationship stuff, the funny stories, the nicknames, what they're doing now, their family. It's all about relationships, right? And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, that those are the lasting things, and I think that's what I'm chasing in coaching now is building cultures that transformation stays the goal. I think that's really what it's all about.
And you would say, Coach Avery, that's what makes the best type of team, right? As opposed to a very strict, you're kind of afraid of the coach, kind of like ecosystem.
Yeah, of course. Look, you know, we could point to teams all over the place. Look, if it was just about buying the most talented players, we can name the teams that would win every year, right?
Right.
Sometimes they do win, but oftentimes they don't, right? And so it's about so much more in the dynamics of the group than it is just about the individual with the highest price tag that comes with it. And so that's the beauty of the game is that, you know, there's all, you know, you get to enjoy time in the sun, but you also get all the wind and the rain and the snow and everything else that really makes you grow too. And
right.
The game's great because it provides all the drama. We get all the excitement and all the lows and all the inside our head, all that stuff happens, and we grow through it, you know. But at the end of the day, it's not about the game. Here's how I know it's not about the game. Last summer, we won the championship in the division that we were in. First time ever in club history. You know, we've come from
Congratulations.
Thank you. Not having a club to winning the champ. We were undefeated in the league, right? The moment that we win, they took a picture of it, right? So I have this great photo of the team kind of all together, embracing each other, whatever. And I look at that picture now, and what I do not see is, oh, wow, that's when we won the championship. I don't look at it as, look at the great job I just did, validation, new contract, maybe more money. Like, what I look at it, I just say, oh, that's me and my friends. There's my friends. That's what I look at it, right? I also know that in that moment, your hands go up in the air because you just won. As the coach, before my hands come down, I think, oh, shit, we got to do that again now. We got to do that again. You know what I mean? So, like, that part of it, the competition part of it, pursuit of competitive excellence, that's natural. That just comes. You know what I mean? The takeaway, though, are the relationships that we have. When you get to be at somebody's wedding or you get a call because they had a baby or new job or, you know what I mean? Like, that's what it's all about. Look, he's in Brazil. You're in Cleveland. I'm sitting here. The game just brings people together, right?
It does.
We're very lucky. We're very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So,
all right, Coach, we're going to pivot on a couple more segments we got. We're going to do a little segment here. By the way, I forgot to mention the fourth thing that sets us apart. The audience is that we're going to be sponsoring up and coming soccer players, more on the grassroots level. You don't have to be a Ronaldinho or a Ibrahimovic to be sponsored. You could just be a great player, and send us a link, send us a message on Instagram. A little bit about the shoes. They're high quality shoes. These are pink. We got red right here. Um,
Wow.
and great leather, aggressive stud pad. We have a good stitching on it. They're lightweight, very, very comfortable, padding on the inside. Alrighty, so, whoops. Alrighty, so Coach Avery,
Yeah.
we would like to see if you could maybe tell us something like about your professional career, or an embarrassing moment, or just a memory in general that is like a priceless memory of your career, either as a coach or as a player. It could be, your first championship win, as you mentioned, or just elaborate a little bit on that. And then secondly, we would like to see if you could invite someone on the channel, kind of do a shout out to someone, kind of like you know, uh, invite the next guest, and then we could reach out to them
Okay.
on your behalf, or so.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll start the first question you said, like a moment in my career. I was actually just talking about this with somebody today. It's kind of a different moment that you'll get probably a lot. I was coaching at Valparaiso at the time. Actually, I take it back. I was coaching at Notre Dame at the time. My wife was coaching at Valparaiso at the time, volleyball. And we were having our first child. So Alex, my oldest, was born during the season. Not great planning from two coaches, right? So my wife happened to be coaching the ball. She's a really successful Division I volleyball coach. We had seen the doctor. It was right at the end of the season. I was away with Notre Dame at the Big East Championship, and we were in Connecticut that weekend. And she was hosting her conference championship that weekend. And so we both visited the doctor together, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're another week away. You guys are fine to go on your little trips or do whatever."
Oh,
And so
wow.
I flew out to Connecticut with Notre Dame. We ended up winning the Big East championship. Great memory. And then I
Congrats.
was able to hop on the charter flight with one of the administrators and get home right away. So the team stayed behind, and I came back. She then went into labor. So she was supposed to play in the conference championship, and she went into labor. And so 24 hours later, our son is born, and her team is playing in the semifinals of the conference championship, and we're listening to it on the radio in the delivery room, and they win. And so the second that we were allowed to be released from the hospital, we took our son. I don't know who does this, who takes a baby and drops him off to the grandparents. But we took our newborn son, dropped him at grandparents, and drove straight to the gym. And she coached the conference championship. Less than
What a
24
trooper your
hours.
wife is.
Yeah,
Wow.
less than 20. She had
Wow.
all the bracelets on, from the hospital. She walked into the gym like a conquering hero. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
and they ended up winning, going to the NCAA tournament. It was an incredible weekend. But I think of it because you talk about these moments where,
Yeah.
for us, it's like these are our families. You know what I mean? Our players become our families. My players become her players become mine. And to me, that's, again, these are the most incredible things that happen in the game. Look, my whole life hasn't just been shaped by soccer. I told you, my whole life has been in the game, right? It's been saved by it so many times over and over and over again. And so I just feel so grateful that I get a chance to stay in it and just to keep coaching, and you know what I mean? And fortunately to do it now, I work side by side with DeMarcus Beasley, one of the greatest players in U.S. history, and we're building this professional club in his hometown of Fort Wayne, Indiana. In another year and a half, we'll play our first game at the League One level. It's been incredible to go from.
I have to go to one of those games.
Yes, you do. Yeah,
And I'll have to sign there.
yeah, it's a great setup. It's a really fun town for it, and we're doing really well. We've got some work to do in stadium building and some other things, but it's all coming together. But again, those things are all just kind of like icing on the cake. What's important really are just the people we get to hang out with every day. You know what I mean? So that's kind of those memories in sport that for me just go so much deeper. My youngest son, KJ, was adopted. We adopted him from Africa. It was probably a few
Wow.
years after Hamid. Was it before or after you were at school? Was he there when you were there?
No, I remember KJ.
Yeah, so we had adopted him probably right before you got to school there. But
Yeah.
like all of these memories of him coming into the locker room and seeing all of these guys that he looked up to, you know what I mean? And they're like big brothers to him. You know, it's just
Like superheroes.
What's that?
It's like superheroes.
Yeah, yeah. And so that to me is more important than anything. You know, that's where these memories all come from me. When I look back on the career, it won't be on a goal that I scored, it won't be on a game that we won. Even if it's a championship game, it's going to be those personal interactions. That's going to be it for me. So, second part, you had said, who should you interview next? Basically, was the question, right?
Yeah. If you want to invite someone,
I do. Hamid will know him. I actually think he would be a great guest for your show. Zev Taubli.
Oh, yes. I would love to have Zeb Talbot
Yeah.
on the show.
So Zeb played for me at Valparaiso like Hamid did, and then went on to have a professional career. He's been chasing it in some ways like Hamid has. And now he's spun into his own side companies, the college soccer guy on TikTok who helps kids find college soccer opportunities. He's an incredible, positive person. And I'll tell you a quick story about Zev is that he grew up in Malibu, California, and I was coaching out in
Nice.
Indiana. And so I got a call from some contacts of mine that there was a really good player. Hamid will verify. Zev's a little guy. He's a tiny little guy.
Yeah, he's small. But
Yeah, and so everybody was telling me he's really talented, but he's small, right? And I said, look, I don't care about how big someone is. Messi's not huge. Like, I don't care. Can he play, right? College soccer is a physical game and very athletic. And so, anyways, I sent my assistant coach, a guy named Phil Ruskin, out to California to watch Zev play. And he called me and he's like, you're going to love this kid. He can really play. He's your kind of player. I said, all right, well, let's bring him out on a visit. So we fly him out a couple weeks later to Indiana. I pick him up in Chicago at the airport. I'd never seen him before. And I told him, I said, when you land, text me because I don't want to park. So I'll just pull up at the curb and grab you, right? So I get a text, Coach, I'm waiting out in front of the arrival gate. So I pull my car up and I hop out of the car and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, there's nobody that looks like a soccer player here, right? There's just nobody here. And there's this tiny little kid. He's got like a baseball cap on, like one billy goat hair coming out. And he comes up to me and he says, Coach Avery? And I just think, damn it. I was so mad the whole drive back to campus because I was like, I prepared that he was small. I didn't know that he looked like he was about 7 years old. You know what I mean? Like he was tiny. And then we had the most incredible conversation. By the time we got back to campus, about an hour later from the airport, I said, I don't even care if he can play. I have to have this guy on my team. I have to have him on my team. He's like quoting John Wooden to me. He's the most incredible person. But it's funny because, you know, you can't judge a book by its cover, right? And he's a 5'5" defensive midfielder that thinks he should go up against a 6'7" guy for a head ball. Like he's just all fight and passion, and it comes out in everything he does. I think you guys would really enjoy having him on the show.
excellent. That'd be great.
Yeah, I love Zev. I talk to him like every time I'm in California.
Yeah,
I always meet up with him. I always see him.
He'll have a lot of great
club
experience. His career, I think he played in Sweden, he played in Israel, he played in USL Championship.
Wow.
He's had kind of some interesting career.
As a defensive mid or a center mid, you said?
Yeah, he was a defensive midfielder. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Coach. So last part of the session or of the episode. This has been a blessing to have you on here.
Sure.
We will end the show with just you giving some lessons to those soccer players watching this show. Any advice? It could be for football. It could be for life. It could be something personal. Obviously, football is it's a roller coaster. For those who've made it, for those who are maybe not yet, and maybe going through some personal things, what would you say to them? Whatever advice you'd like to give to them.
Yeah, I think I would say that there's never been a more exciting time to be a footballer than right now in America. right? The
Fun.
game is, for my whole life, it's been coming. It's coming. The game's coming. It's about ready to take. You know what I mean? And you can't say that anymore. It's here. You know what I mean? You have, there's 30 some odd teams in the MLS. There's 60,000 people watching every week. Messi's playing in the league. You know what I mean? Like, we have the World Cup coming in 26. It's booming now,
It's here.
right? It's
Yeah.
here, right? It's here. But it also means that there's more and more players that now see aspirationally what they maybe want to do down the road. And I guess what I'm telling people is it's really hard. It's hard. It's a deep pool that gets deeper all the time. If you're a high school player that's trying to go to college, for example, I use this example all the time, but if you go and do the research and the stats, there's something in the neighborhood of about 1 million high school seniors playing soccer in America right now. Okay? In that neighborhood.
Wow.
So if you say there's 200-ish Division I soccer teams in the NCAA, I think it's like 206 or something like that. And if they take on average 4 or 5 recruits a year, that means out of 1 million high school seniors, they're going to take 4 or 5. That's 1,000 players are going to make it to the Division I level. That's not including, by the way, transfers, which has become such a massive part of the recruiting process. And that's not including international players, which has become a massive part of the college soccer process, right? It's talk about a pyramid that gets really steep and very sharp and small at the top. It's hard, man. And so what I ask players all the time is, so knowing those odds, why you? Why you? You know what I mean? Like, if you say, well, I work hard, everybody works hard.
Everyone works hard.
You know what I mean?
It's the
Well,
consensus
I'm
that
really
you hear,
dedicated.
Coach.
Everybody's dedicated. You know what I mean? Like, why you? What is it about you that separates you from everybody else? So it takes self-reflection, takes self-awareness, it takes honest conversations with people that care about you, that don't just fill your head with what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Where can you improve? These are the things that you do well. This is what you need to emphasize. These are the things that still challenge you. You're still working through those. You need guidance through that process, but at the same time, you got to have self-belief that this is what I really want. Look, there's nowhere that it's written that you have to be a good soccer player to be a good person, right? And so, saying that that's what you want to do because it's the only thing that matters, it's not true, right? There's a lot of things that you can do with your time, but if it is what you're passionate about, right, then the question is, okay, so this is what you want. Yes, this is what I want. All right, what are you now willing to do about it? What are you willing to do about it? How many times are you willing to be told no? I'm always so impressed with Hamid, since he left Valpo and all these trials that he's been on and teams that he's in, he's flying around. How many times has the guy been told no? And then he just says, okay, thank you for your input. I'm on to the next one. It's incredible. It's so much time for that kind of passion, right? If you look at it in the sense that you're one no closer to a yes,
Yeah.
Exactly.
and I think that's it. Look, I had a player last week that played for me last summer in Fort Wayne. Very good player, high-level Division I player, MLS draft pick, like the whole thing, right? Has not hooked up with a team yet. It's hard, right? So he's been told no a few times. So after maybe the second or third no in the MLS, by the way, not in League One, overseas league, whatever. Now he's saying, well, I don't know if I really want to do this. Like maybe soccer is not for me. It's like, okay, just you got a couple no's and that's it. You're gonna pack it up and go home now, And again, I'm not saying that you have to play. Like there's no right or wrong to this thing, but if you really believe that that's something that's driving you, you just got to buckle up for a long ride. You know what I mean? And maybe you're one of the lucky ones, and it's a fast way to the top. That's few
So
and
you
far
just have to be
between.
steadfast. You have to be
Yeah.
very steadfast.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, right? And I think worth it because again, you get a chance to have these kinds of interactions and experiences with friends. I have friends in every single country in the world. You know what I mean? Like I could go anywhere and run into somebody that I know from this team, that. You know what I mean? The game brings the world together, and it brings you so much joy. And so, I think it's worth your time to chase. right?
I agree.
But at the same time, you just got to buckle yourself up for the hard. It's a hard road. It's a hard road.
I agree
All right,
100%.
Mike.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Hamid, you want to add anything else? You want to ask Coach anything else?
Honestly, I don't really have too much. It's really good to see Coach Avery again. I mean, it's funny because for me personally, I remember this because one time I was in a coach's office and he told me like one day you're gonna realize the lessons that you learned here. Like one day you're gonna realize it. You're still a little bit too young to process some of it. And like I remember little moments in my career, whether I was in Croatia or Latvia or Brazil, and I was going like, hey, I learned this at Valpo. Like Coach Avery told me I was going to go through this, or he told me that I was going to understand this eventually. And it's funny because like you said in the beginning of the podcast, some of this stuff you can only learn through experiencing it firsthand. And it's funny how those words, they still ring true to this day, and they ring true with me, whether it's with another player, whether it's no matter what level you are, eventually you learn those lessons. And it's funny because it really that moment, those moments, they stick with me all the time because I still have those moments.
Yeah.
So it's actually really good to be. I'm really like thankful and privileged to have had that kind of guidance early on. I was only 17, and to have that guidance early on and to be able to still process that information and still learn those lessons today is something that it's a testament to the knowledge that Coach Avery's accrued over his whole life playing this sport.
Coach, I'd like to ask you real quick, how was your time in Sweden?
It was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I was 21 years old, living in Sweden. You know what I mean? It was incredible. I didn't play at a really high level. It was a lower league team that was maybe in the third division at the time, and it was more of a life experience, I think, than it was anything else. But that was before the MLS. Like you had to go places if you were trying to play. The people that were of my age that were in the first MLS game, they had to kind of ride through a long period of time where playing, you had to have some resources in which to keep going as a player. It was hard to make a living, or you had to go try and do it somewhere else. And so we'd go play in places like Sweden, or you come back and play in the pro indoor leagues or in a league. I think I played in the APSL that changed its initials like every summer. It was the APSL, and it was the MPSL, and it was you constantly were just trying to make it work. But again, very, very thankful for all those experiences too, because I'm a fan and I watch the game now. I spend a whole day on a Saturday and just watch MLS games all day long because I'm a fan. And it's a pleasure to see how far it's come in our country, and then to think about how far it can still go. Really, really cool.
I think the infrastructure has already been laid out pretty well. And like you said, it's going to even get more streamlined. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and with the World Cup coming, it's one more opportunity to showcase the game on the biggest stage. You get it's hard to find a casual fan now. Everybody knows about the game now, but to convince them over is going to be really something. So I saw something recently. I don't remember what I was watching, but they were interviewing professional athletes from all kinds of sports about what they do. There's like one of these guys that catch them on the street, kind of, and says, "What do you do?
What do you do for a living?"
That guy, but they were all dressed up, so they must have been at an event, and they were all American football players. And every single one of them, when they didn't say I play football, they say I play American football. Interesting that they're even differentiating now between football and American football. Really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started playing when I was, like your age, 4 or 5 years old, and now there's a lot of Premier Leagues that you can, join, and private club teams, and the infrastructure is already laid out a lot better. So I think it's I think it's already caught on in the United States, and it's
Yeah, I
only
think
going to be
the
more.
challenge we have in our country is it's too structured, maybe. Um,
Hmm.
the infrastructure is such it's a money making, and it's not just soccer. Like that's my youngest son's a very good basketball player, and I spent the day today shelling out money for hotels for AAU tournaments over the summer. It's a very expensive project to pursue sport in our country. And somehow we've got to figure that out because football is the world's game. And the best players come from the places that typically you can't afford to play in the right teams in America. And so
Hmm.
how we identify those players is going to be continually the challenge because they're everywhere. They're all over this country. So
That's interesting. It's something that we might have to work on.
for sure.
Collaborate.
Yeah.
Really, honestly.
Yeah, and then the MLS doesn't like the USL, and they don't play nice together. The ECNL and the whatever GA nobody likes each other, right? And so they're in competition with each other, not supporting one another. And so hopefully we'll get to a point where we figure out because it's a big country how you funnel the
It's a big
best
country, and
players.
there's so much talent, right? Would you say? I mean,
Sure.
there's enough talent for every league, really. It's
Yeah.
not.
And like you're in Cleveland, you can go to Cleveland and kick a ball in the air. It's going to hit a good player when it lands. They're everywhere, Eastern European backgrounds, and you know what I mean. Like they all come together in there. L.A., where Hamid grew up, it's like they're just players everywhere. Some of the most talented guys I've ever played with never played in any real professional team, but they were playing in the Sunday leagues in Los Angeles. Incredible talents. And so how you identify these people and get them in front of the right people, like I said before, be good on the right day in front of the right person. How do we get those people in front of the right people? That's going to be the challenge, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent, Coach. Well, it was a blessing to have you on, and we're gonna keep your information, and obviously, we would love to collaborate somehow in the future, and you're more than welcome to get on the show. Just shoot us a message. But yeah, it's been a great episode, and we are very, very thankful, honestly.
Yeah, well, good luck with the show and with everything else. And Hamid, good luck over there in Brazil, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And best of luck with Fort Wayne. I'm always following you. So.
Yep. Take care. Good to see you guys.
Take care.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Coach.